The birth of a dream is then no mystery. It resembles the birth of all our perceptions. The mechanism of the dream is the same, in general, as that of normal perception. When we perceive a real object, what we actually see, the sensible matter of our perception, is very little in comparison with what our memory adds to it. When you read a book, when you look through your newspaper, do you suppose that all the printed letters really come into your consciousness? In that case, the whole day would hardly be long enough for you to read a paper. The truth is that you see in each word and even in each member of a phrase only some letters or even some characteristic marks, just enough to permit you to divine the rest. All the rest that you think you see, you really give yourself as a hallucination. There are numerous and decisive experiments which leave no doubt on this point. I will cite only those of Goldscheider and Müller. These experimenters wrote or printed some formulas in common use, positively no admission, preface to the fourth edition, etc., but they took care to write the words incorrectly, changing and, above all, omitting letters. These sentences were exposed in a darkened room. The person who served as the subject of the experiment was placed before them and did not know, of course, what had been written. Then the inscription was illuminated by the electric light for a very short time, too short for the observer to be able to perceive really all the letters. They began by determining experimentally the time necessary for seeing one letter of the alphabet. It was then easy to arrange it so that the observer could not perceive more than 8 or 10 letters, for example, of the 30 or 40 letters composing the formula. Usually, however, he had read the entire phrase without difficulty, but that is not for us the most instructive point of this experiment. If the observer is asked what are the letters that he is sure of having seen, these may be, of course, the letters really written, but there are also many absent letters, either letters that we replaced by others or that have simply been omitted. Thus, an observer will see quite distinctly in full light a letter which does not exist, if this letter, on account of the general sense, ought to enter into the phrase. The characters which have really affected the eye have been utilized not only to serve as an indication to the unconscious memory of the observer. This memory, discovering the appropriate remembrance, that is, finding the formula to which these characters give a start toward realization, projects the remembrance externally in a hallucinatory form. It is this remembrance, and not the words themselves, that the observer has seen. It is thus demonstrated that rapid reading is in great part a work of divination, but not of abstract divination. It is an externalization of memories which take advantage, to a certain extent, of the partial realization, and that they find here and there in order to completely realize themselves. Thus, in the waking state, and in the knowledge that we get of the real objects which surround us, an operation is continually going on which is quite of the same nature as that of the dream. We perceive merely a sketch of the object. This sketch appears to the complete memory, and this complete memory, which by itself was either unconscious or simply in the thought state, profits by the occasion to come out. It is this kind of hallucination, inserted and fitted into a real frame, that we perceive. It is a shorter process. It is very much quicker done than to see the thing itself. Besides, there are many interesting observations to be made upon the conduct and attitude of the memory images during this operation. It is not necessary to suppose that they are in our memory in a state of inert impressions. They are like the steam in a boiler, under more or less tension. At the moment when the perceived sketch calls them forth, it is as if they were grouped in families according to their relationship and resemblances. There are experiments of Münsterberg, earlier than those of Goldscheider and Müller, which appear to me to confirm this hypothesis, although they were made for a very different purpose. Münsterberg wrote the words correctly. They were, besides, not common phrases. They were isolated words taken by chance. Here again the word was exposed during the time too short for it to be entirely perceived. Now, while the observer was looking at the written word, someone spoke in his ear another word of a very different significance. This is what happened. The observer declared that he had seen a word which was not the written word, but which resembled it in general form, and which besides recalled, by its meaning, the word which was unspoken in his ear. For example, the word written was tumult, and the word spoken was railroad. The observer read tunnel, the written word was triste, and the spoken word was the German Verzweiflung, despair. The observer read Trost, which signifies consolation. It is as if the word railroad, pronounced in the ear, wakened, without our knowing it, hopes of conscious realization in a crowd of memories which have some relationship with the idea of railroad, car, rail, trip, etc. But this is only a hope, and the memory which succeeds in coming into consciousness is that which the actually present sensation had already begun to realize. Such is the mechanism of true perception, and such is that of the dream. In both cases there are, on one hand, real impressions made upon the organs of sense, and upon the other memories which encase themselves in the impression and profit by its vitality to return again to life.